Hello everyone, my name is Roya and today I'm coming to you with the books that I read in the first half of April. So the first book I finished is Black Sun by Rebecca Rohnhorse. This is, I'm not going to go too far into what this is about because it is just such a weird, unique plot that's just like super odd. But I loved it and the characters are really on point and they're dynamic together, especially the two main characters it's really good. And yeah, this is just a really unique book and I really can't wait to read the next one. So yeah, if you've been thinking about reading this, like definitely get on it. Ace by Angela Chen. This is a nonfiction just about asexuality in our society and all the different things about it and about how society treats asexuality and why and all kinds of facts. It's so interesting. I could barely put this book down while I was reading it. I definitely do feel like a lot of it made some really good points that had kind of been in the back of my mind, but that I hadn't really like thought too hard about because I had never like seen that like any data backing that up and all that stuff. But like she has such good examples of everything in this and just like different points about it and everything. And this book just really made me feel so seen as well, just because like seeing that there are different reasons why society thinks certain things and why, and seeing the data that backs it up and everything. And just a lot of the kind of case studies, the kind of case points that are brought up as examples in this, because she does actually interview a lot of people in this. A lot of people of various genders and just various experiences surrounding asexuality, that a lot of these people had very similar experiences as I did, and then there were people who had completely different experiences as well, because of course there are varying levels of asexuality. And yeah, this was just such a good read and I absolutely recommend it. The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This is another really weird book, but basically it so in this book, different cities have souls, and this follows five people who have been awakened as souls of New York City. Basically, there is a force from another dimension trying to stop them, and it's really it doesn't reveal exactly what's going on until pretty late in the book. So at first it just seems like really odd, and you're kind of like, what is going on here? But it does all come together and make perfect sense towards the end, which is just really odd. But yeah, it's really fascinating. And it's also interesting how, you know, all the different people this follows are also dealing with like different real people problems as well, that are kind of also a result of them being the city and everything. And then it is also interesting that this does have a pretty good like anti-hero, I guess, because she's like not a villain. She's not the villain per se, but she becomes bad throughout the course of this story. And basically it's because she is uneducated, never left her home, never did anything. Like, we can see that she's not like her racist piece of dirt father who literally invites a Nazi to stay with them and stuff like that. Like she's not like that at all, and she doesn't approve of that or whatever, but she basically is so easy to manipulate. She's so easy for the villain to manipulate, and she's so easy for her father to manipulate and all of that, because she's never done anything else, and it's entirely like her lack of any actual education. Like, she's never left home ever, and she's literally my age and she's still living with her parents and all of that, whereas like, she could have been a completely different person if she had actually gone and done things with her life. And so it's definitely really interesting to see like how someone can become a bad person even when they're not purposely a bad person. And that's how a lot of people really are. The Dark Forest by Yushishin Liu. This is, and it's translated by Joel Martinson, not Ken Liu. Ken Liu kind of takes a hiatus for this one for some reason. But anyway, this is the sequel to The Three Body Problem, and it follows a very different corner of the story, I guess. Like, it doesn't, it felt, I mean, it's been a while since I read The Three Body Problem, like a good 5 or 6 years, something like that. So I really was missing a lot of the connection there, I think, just because I barely remember, like, I don't remember as much of that book as I should. But this definitely felt really different. And it is really interesting, and it also follows kind of the events of several hundred years too, which was kind of weird. I was not expecting that. But anyway, definitely a good book. Definitely a lot of good commentary on kind of humanity in this. And yeah, I just really liked it. Then The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes. So I've been really hungry for like music industry related romance books lately. I don't want to read books that are just about like some chick who falls in love with a dude who's in a band or something. Like, I'm not into that. I want books where both people work in music in some capacity. And so I haven't found like a ton of, like, I definitely had to really look far and wide to find books like that. But I did find several finally. So this is the first one that I've decided to read, and this is really not a like hugely romance driven book. Like, it is definitely a romance book, so plot driven. It could have not had the romance aspect and still been a perfect book like by itself as well. But so it is like way more plot driven than the typical romance book that I would read pretty much. But it's about a girl who is a really good guitar player, and she doesn't want to be famous or anything. She just kind of wants to be like a session guitar player and own a recording studio and stuff like that. But then she gets this chance to audition for a really good, like, famous band that's all girls, and she decides that, you know, she's definitely like good enough to do it, to try out, and she could really use the money to buy her recording studio and all of that. So she auditions and she gets in, and it turns out that this dude who she was best friends with when she was a teenager, who skipped town and left her and everything, works for the band. And he feels really bad about having done that too. And he was not expecting to run into her either. And he's currently dating, but not real, like, kind of dating the guitar player that she's replacing in the band, who is a piece of work, and just really not taking no for an answer about like her being kicked out. Basically, like, she's totally in denial about being kicked out, and it's so like awkward. So I thought this was a really good book. I thought the characters were really good. The struggles that they're each kind of going through are really well rounded as well. The side characters were really good too, for the most part. That there were, and yeah, for the most part, like, since the author apparently does have a music related background and all of that, like, most of the music industry stuff was actually like accurate, but there were still some things that that I couldn't really get past, like the fact that this band is like really famous, they're signed to a label, all that stuff, but they like, it keeps referring to them as a cover band at first, and I was like, cover bands don't get signed, that doesn't make sense. But then it kind of goes back and forth between referring to them as a cover band versus an original band, and I was like really confused. So there were some things like that, and then like there's a part where they're like about to go on stage and the bass player is restringing her bass, and I was like, no, nobody in the history of ever puts new strings on their instrument right before going on stage. Nobody ever does that. So there were like some things where I kind of was like, no, nah. But anyway, overall, this book was really good. I barely put it down, and there were definitely parts where I was like, oh my gosh, I was like on the edge of my seat, and it was really good. And then the last book that I read in the first half of the month was Azar On Fire by Olivia Abtahi. This is the kind of companion sequel to Perfectly Parveen, and I really do not think this lived up to Perfectly Parveen. I mean, of course, because the themes are completely different, the themes of this, but it does also feature an Iranian main character, and or she's actually 1/4 Iranian. Her mom actually has the author's own ethnicity of being half Iranian, half Argentinian, basically. But basically this main character is she's 14, and she writes songs, she plays several instruments, but she can't sing because she has a throat like problem with her vocal folds, because like she had an infection when she was a baby and stuff, and like talking is hard enough for her pretty much, so she definitely can't sing. And then she gets roped into putting a band together for like a battle of the bands, because she accidentally destroys school property, and the principal sees that she happens to be holding drumsticks and kind of goes like, well, you can repay the damages by getting a band together and doing this battle of the bands. And then the whole rest of the thing is her dealing with having to let someone else sing, let someone else play guitar and all that stuff to songs that like she wrote and everything, that she would rather be singing and playing guitar for. And it would have been so much easier to put a band together if she could just sing and be out front and everything, and only had to find a couple other people. But she basically has to find like most of the band. um and so yeah, so it's all like, it's really interesting. I really liked this book. I had a really good time reading it. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. This was an arc I got from Penguin Teen. It comes out August 23rd, so definitely keep an eye out for it. Those are the books that I read in the first half of the month. So if you have read any of these, have any thoughts on them, let me know what your thoughts are, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye.